Is that it? We
That's
on?
it.
Wow.
I guess so. I don't see the monitor
I mean,
telling you the
there's that.
green, tell you
Comments
the
are
power
there,
of the voice.
right? But they can hear us.
Yeah,
That's good. Let's see. How about that?
that sounds good to me.
All right, let me check. I mean, we're live right here.
Ooh,
That's good. You can hear it?
that's so
All
cool.
right, let me check. Okay, there.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's see what else here. I'm on Twitch. I got one viewer going on. Hi, everyone. Let's see. Yep. Well, that was easy. Yeah, I love being on Twitch remote. This is great.
Wow. I don't even know what Twitch is. Ellen DeGeneres' dancer's name is Twitch. That's all I
That's
know.
all you know. Yeah. Okay, great. Yep. There we go. All right. Oh, welcome everyone to Barrio AKO. This is like episode 6 now.
Well, that's awesome, bro.
Yeah. I'm really honored to be here. I'm trying to look there. I'm trying to look here.
I'll look at you there.
All right. And I'll look this way. Because we're just talking. You all can just see my hair and we'll just call it a day, right? There. Although when I'm talking, I wonder if they can hear me. I should be this way, really.
Yeah, just stay where you're at.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
No, this is great. This is on the fly, by the way.
All right.
Okay.
There's no flies in my house.
No.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, my name's Arthur Barinque. I am an artist, a leader, community organizer, whatever you want to call me, co-founder of Filipino Barrio Fiesta here in Livermore, California. A little history about Barrio. In 2016, we received a proclamation from the city of Livermore proclaiming October as Filipino American History Month. Then we partied. They call it partying. They said we party too much. But anyway, so
smoke Papalolo that day, brother.
4 years later and 4 parties later, we brought people from all over the Bay Area to Livermore, and Barrio grew to be a heavily attended event. And then one that everyone looked forward to. I mean, people looked forward to going to Barrio. Then COVID hit, and then from that, we took it online. And from online, I mean, we're here now with Barrio AKO. Hey, what's up, Danielle? What's up, sis? You know Danielle?
Danielle
Powell. Well, that's her last name. Her married last name.
Yeah.
I don't even remember her last name from
she wasn't in gangs or drugs, I don't remember her.
No, not Danielle. All right. Anyway, so we're here now, and actually, she says you do. Jenny Bolena.
Oh,
you know the Bolenas.
I know the Bolenas very well.
Yeah. We're going to have comedy today, by the way. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm going to say anymore. We're here. We had Barrio in October, and it was amazing. We had thousands of people, and it was great to have community again in that kind of way. Anyway, we're also having community online through Barrio AKO, right? And so I just want to take a moment of silence. Just to reflect on all the wins we've had. Sometimes we take moments of silence for those, our ancestors, and for those that have passed. And there's no doubt that I want to take a moment of silence for that. But I also want to say, good job. Like, we made it this far. So I want to take a moment of silence for gratitude to be here right now. And I'm so thankful. I'm really, really thankful to be here with Clay Felicitas. This guy is the community. He built the community. No. Yeah, he says no, but man, the contributions that this man has made to Livermore can't even put it all in one broadcast. So everyone who he's reached out to, touched, inspired, man, that's it right there. And it's like you don't even need recognition. He just does it out of his heart, right? I just presented him with an award. Maybe I'll post it later. But because he is the soul of our people, he is the heart of our people. And I'm so thankful to be here with him and to be able to interview him today. And with that, Clay Felicitas, you want to say a few words really quick?
What's up, community? How are you? My name is Clay Felicitas. He does a good job. It's not Balasitas like the road. It's Felicitas, and thank God. I don't think they have that road up there no more. Highway 84 going to San Jose. That used to be Valasitas Road.
Yeah, it used to
So
be
he used to
tiny.
call me, oh, this is Mr. Valasitas. And I go, no, I'm not Valasitas. I'm Felicitas. And that is a Spaniard name. A lot of you know, well, not a lot of you know. I'm a mestizo, mixed, Pinoy, Mexicano. And we're probably one of the first in the valley to come here in the 1950s. So I just leave it with that, bro. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. Where you want to go, it's up to you, Art. And again, he doesn't talk about himself, but I am so thankful that Art has taken upon himself he's taken on a big responsibility. I grew up in this town. This town sometimes is not kind to our ethnicity. I'm just going to say it that way, nicely. We've lived through the battles in the beginning of our time. And Art now is be able to bring new blood, new youth to the march. And I call it a march because we haven't stopped marching. You know, we celebrated, I think it's 70 some years, if not maybe less than that. I'm not sure. But Intalong and Cesar Chavez way back in the day did the Huelga movement. And really the Filipino is the one that brought that movement. But nobody likes to talk about that. They like about, the Hispanic community. Cesar Chavez, well, yeah, that's good. But I know my answer is the Filipino community. My dad is a Filipino in my house. They started all that stuff way back in the day. Watsonville riots, everything that was going on at that time. When the Manongs came here in the early days in the 1940s to help during World War II and all the stuff that went with that stuff. There's so much history. But what's sad to me, and what Art is doing now, he's bringing this history out through old folk like me. And what I mean by old folk, I've lived around now 71
Don't say
years.
It. Oh, he said it.
I'm 71 years old now, and to some people that's young, but to people like me that grew up real quick at the age of 12 when mama split, I had to grow up real quick and worked since I was 12. I couldn't even sign my Social Security card because I didn't know how to penmanship at those days, And then the first day of school, I wet my pants because I didn't speak English very well. I spoke Spanish first. And then I learned real quick, you better learn English. So I did. All right, Art, I can go on all day without you asking me a question.
No, I love it. Hey, it makes it easy for me. But so I know I had like a script to stick to, but we're not going to stick to scripts. We're just going to talk story. So if we hit on the things, then we hit on the things. But you really alluded to like California history. And a question that came to my mind was, how did you navigate that? Like, how did you navigate all that was happening to you because of environmental causes, right? Like, I guess it's two parts. Speak to your youth and how you grew up, and then how you had to navigate that with the political climate. I hate to just say it's political, but just like the overall political climate.
Yeah. Well, my understanding, Art, my mom and dad goes back to Hollister, California, and that's by Salinas, San Jose, all that area up there. And my understanding of my mom and dad is my dad, Filipino, see this young lady, and he fell in love with this young lady, not knowing that she was only 14. And in the same year that he asked her to marry him, on wedding night, he tells my mother he's 27 years old when they're engaged. That's about 6 months worth of time. And then they get married, and on wedding night, he's 37 and she's still 14. So today's standards are considered statutory rape. And I just say it like it is. I don't know how else to say it. But because my grandma and grandpa, which is my mother's side, came to live with us, that made it okay. So that's why I say I was raised by my grandmother. We used to sleep in the same bed with my grandmother, my second brother and I had a sister at that time, and I learned how to speak Spanish. Uh, so, like I try to tell you about the Manongs and the Manongs back in the day, and you look that up in history books, Filipinos, and I speak to that piece, weren't allowed to marry any white woman or anybody that had land that was white. And that's the truth. I think that law got abolished in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. So most of these Pinoys back in the day married Mexican girls that were still considered white. But my mom was from El Paso, Texas. He's already here. So my dad married her, and thus they formed a family. Uh, because my grandparents live with us, and all of you young parents today that are out there that feed your babies this nice food or processed food you all make. Well, my processed food, my kind of Gerbers, was my grandfather eating the food and then out of his own mouth feeding me what he already chewed, and that's how I ate. Well, he died of tuberculosis, and I caught tuberculosis. So when he died at that time when we were here in Livermore, in Hollister, I should say, Dad had to move me here to Livermore because it was the only sanitarium in the Bay Area in the 1950s and 60s, and that's up above Winty Winery. It's a building now, and it's not occupied for tuberculosis, but that's where I was spent 9 months of my life as a little boy, raised by an African American man, as I was told, and that's the beginning of my life here in Livermore. 12 years of X-rays and pokes and prods, and I cost my parents a lot of money, and they weren't very rich. We didn't have much money, and we ended up going to Fifth Street School, which is now Del Val. And like I said, my first day of school, I wet my pants because I couldn't say bathroom. I said baño, and the teacher looked at me like, "What the heck is a baño?" So the art is just crazy how that particular history and time, because of the Manon situation in the 40s and 50s, Dad ended up marrying a Mexican lady. My mom, her name was Juanita. My dad's name was Clay, and they had 5 kids all together. By the time I was 12, Mom, like I said, left us, but that's a whole different story.
So you mentioned that like your mom presented white,
Yeah.
right? So she presented white, right? So was that did that turn into some difficulty in, I guess, public facing situations, or was it difficult just even legally to marry?
Well, again, the law, and I don't understand the law because if you think about 1950, I'm born in 1950, and if the law was abolished at that time, I've studied a little bit about it, and again, no Filipino that I understand or anybody of that ethnic, whether it be Filipino, Chinese, Japanese, especially Japanese, and everything else that went with that, weren't allowed to marry a white person, white woman. And I don't say that to be discriminatory. I say that because that was the law. And they considered Mexican women white. And so consequently, they had to move away from like the Bay Area where all these people, more predominant white folk lived here. It was very hard for my parents to find a place to rent because they were mixed Filipino, Mexican. Jobs were very scarce at that time. And with that said, my dad worked the fields. That's what he was known for in the Philippines. And he worked the fields here in Hollister as the irrigation part of these Pinoys in Hollister. And he carried on that tradition, and he ended up working for Lawrence Livermore Lab. But before Lawrence Livermore Lab, he worked on Rose Garden. He worked for Jackson and Perkins, where Jackson and School is now. was a acreage, acres and acres of roses. And that was all one of the three barrios, Filipino barrios in Livermore that I remember.
Well, yeah, let's speak on that. So let's talk about working the fields. Did your dad travel throughout California to work?
Good
Because was
question.
that was most, I assume, because I hear that a lot of people travel the fields
Mm.
for work.
Well, my dad wasn't the type of man that traveled the fields because he wasn't a seasonal picker. He
Mm.
worked irrigation.
Mhm.
So seasonal picking, like grapes and corn and tomatoes and all that. After we grew up, we started doing that kind of work, but that's because it was local. But for him, he worked again irrigation for Jackson and Perkins. He did roses for them, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but his main, my understanding is my dad was very knowledgeable in irrigation, very knowledgeable. There's two things when you do roses, and I don't know if you know this, Art. It's a stick that's probably the size of my finger. The guy that he worked with is Paul Begonia, and Paul Begonia is well known in Livermore Valley. My dad and him would do between 11,000 to 12,000 sticks a day. Paul would be the butter. He would stick the bud in. That's hard to explain. And my dad would be the tire. And maybe let's just say the 12,000 they planted or they did that day, if they got between 9 to 10,000 buds to grow, they were excellent. They were excellent butters and tires. And that's how they got paid, by the thousand. And my dad would do that for years, thousands at a time on a daily basis.
Wow.
That was his job. And then he got lucky. He got to work at Lawrence Livermore Lab as a gardener.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess, is there any more memories or thoughts around just the social climate at the time, working the fields, and
In Livermore?
let's talk about Livermore, and then let's expand to
Yeah.
to the valley. Let's
Well,
go to Delano. Let's
Like
think
I said,
about all
most of
that.
the places that I know of, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of ethnic folk work the fields. I didn't see very many blacks in the fields with the grapes and all that other kind of stuff. But I did see a lot of Pinoy, a lot of the Japanese didn't work close to us with us and that stuff. But the Chinese, the Filipino, the Mexican, uh, and we're different. Why I say different? We're mixed blood. I'm a mestizo. Uh, Art and I talked to this, and I don't know if I'm going off subject again, but there's a class. I'm sorry to say that, but we make our own people into different classes. Some people say because you're Bisayan or you're Ilocano or you're this and you're that. Everybody has a different class, and mestizo, we didn't fit anybody's class because we're half of one and half the other. And I'm going to just say it like I know how to say. I was beat white. I had to learn English. I had to. If I didn't learn English, I wasn't going to make it. And I understand that now. But back in the day, I could care less. You know. So the climate in the fields, most of our workers were ethnic folk. You don't see too many Caucasian people working the fields in this particular area, and most definitely not in the roses. I was telling Art, we have a barrio, three barrios that I remember. Camp Corregidor housed a lot of Pinoys. They stayed in this camp, and it was over by Kincannon at the curve, right there by Kincannon on Tesla Road. It now just grapevines and trees, and I recognized the bend in the road, and that's where Camp Corregidor was. The other one was Jackson and Perkins. They had a camp there, and every Labor Day, we would kill 250-pound pigs and feed the workers. And I would be one of those little boys out there, happy as hell in the nighttime, while the Pinoys are getting drunk with the wine. I'd be turning them pigs all night long, and then when they're drunk, they're giving me the $20 and say, "Heck yeah, I like this job." So we did that for a long time that I can remember. A lot of us that know me and that grew up in this area, you remember those days at Jackson and Perkins. And then Mr. Bernacel, Connie Bernacel is a survivor of the Indianapolis. Uh, One of the few Filipinos that didn't have to clean up behind the white guys. My dad was a steward's mate in the Navy. Mr. Bernacel was in the Navy, but he became, I think, a fireman and didn't have to clean up behind the Caucasian officer. My dad did. He had to cook for the officer, do everything for the white officer. And that's just how it was in those days. That didn't change for me personally. I went in the military in 1969, and it was just changing at that time where I didn't have to clean up behind the white officer. I don't know how else to say it, the Caucasian officer. That's the nice way of saying it.
Well, you know, kids nowadays they understand.
Oh, yeah, I know. They know
They don't
Facebook.
care.
Yeah. So anyway, and then like I said, Mr. Bernacel had his place, and we enjoyed the festivities he had. He would have dances during the certain part of the year just to recognize his workers. And then there was one other gentleman right across from the lab. The lab bought his land, but that's Gonzalo Zumacaro. And Gonzalo Zumacaro, in the Christmas vacation, every year we get 2 weeks vacation. As little Pinoy Mexicano boys, my dad was a rose guy. Even though he worked at the lab, we'd do our weekend stuff out there, and we graded roses. 1, 2, and 3 means a certain grade went to a certain store, and blah 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 blah. And that's how we did for 2 weeks, and that's how we made our money. Of course, we didn't see any of that money because we gave all our money to our dad. But that was our job every Christmas. So when everybody was la 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 and singing carols, we were in the fields working 6 o'clock in the morning till probably 3 or 4 in the afternoon doing roses.
So speak to the encampments if you can. What were some fond memories other
Oh my
than?
God. The fond memories, it's really funny. My son, Daniel, he is a merchant marine chef on board these big ships that deliver iron ore in the Chesapeake Bay. This young man is Pinoy Mestizo. Of course, he's my son. But to speak of the encampments, they killed 20 chickens the other day, and my kids are like, ooh, Dad, that's nasty. Defeathering them, gutting them. You just don't buy a chicken in the store already with feathers. You got to have it all cleaned up. Well, that's what we did. I can remember probably as an 8-year-old boy, 9, 10 years old, 4 or 5 Pinoys come to the camp corregidor. We'd buy a pig, we'd buy a goat, we'd buy some chickens, and we slaughtered them. Dinaguan, of those of you that know what dinaguan is the blood meat. My dad would make dinaguan out of chicken blood. That's how we were raised. We didn't know anything about a store-bought chicken or pork. We ate fresh meat. And of course, we split the cost. Everybody that helped, we split the cost of the pig, the chickens, and the goat. Dinaguan, oh my God, caldereta, what do you call that? Calding? That's what it is, calding. Oh my God, those are the days. And we learned how to eat like that. While the stuff's cooking, they'd cut some of this meat, put it on the fire, barbecue, and pot of rice. And we just, with our fingers, this was the fork, put it in your mouth and eat right there with the guys. And these guys, like I said, I get sad because I miss my dad. I miss my father. But he taught me a tradition that I could never, ever imagine about how to deal with people. These guys, these little short Pinoy boys, there were nobody over 6 foot. These guys were all short guys. My dad, 5'3". But these guys would give you the shirt off their back. If you ended up dropping in while we were doing all of this stuff, you would definitely stay to eat. They would not let you go without eating or have a drink of whiskey. All kinds of whiskey, all kinds of beer, but they would not let you go without feeding you. And that's how the household is today. You come to a house, somebody's cooking, somebody's doing something, they're going to feed you. And if you leave without eating, that's disrespect. That's just our culture. Didn't mean to get emotional, sorry.
No worries. Thank you for that. Yeah, no, it's true. It's a Filipino thing, right? To feed those who enter your home. Make sure they're fed and make sure they go home with food.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Agua.
I know, right? I mean, and
So I don't know if
he
that
made
answered
food
your
for me.
question, Art, but the campments here in town, like I said, Mr. Bernacel would throw winter type parties and dances. I mean, I see the Pinoys are out there dancing. We're out there dancing as kids, and they throw money. Oh
Who?
my
Oh
God!
yeah, who'd they dance with? So
Who, the
like,
Filipinos?
yeah,
All of
all the
us?
Pinoy boys. So was
Whoever,
there?
didn't matter.
Okay,
We
okay,
danced with. I mean, if you had a wife, you dance with your wife. You don't
right,
want to
right,
get killed,
right.
but most of the time we danced with everybody danced with everybody. We just had fun.
Okay,
It's
okay, it was
like
a
it's
party.
like Art when he throws the barrios and all that, and where everybody's enjoying themselves out there. You just enjoy
Yeah,
the camaraderie, And again, we'd invite our buddies. Some of them happen to be white, some of them happen to be Japanese or whatever, and they're like amazed. And why the amazement is we're not any different. We all go poo poo, and it all stinky.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
I don't. Poor Art, probably what the heck?
You can say whatever you want.
I'm
You
an
the
old
man.
man.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. So thinking about it, those were the younger days. When let's talk about being a young man.
Mm,
So coming into your own and
yeah.
realizing your place in the world. Let's say,
Well,
right?
that happened at about the age of 12. Um, when my mother split, like I said, I had to raise four brothers and sisters by myself. I'm the eldest. Uh, I told Art this, and I'll say it to you. My name is the first boy in my house is boy, boy. But because my dad chose one son to go to college, my other name was stupid or dumb, and that's the truth. Stupid, dumb boy, you're going to stay here and your brother's going to go to college. So he went to college. I stayed behind and helped my dad. Not saying that my brother John did not help, but that's what my dad said. You're going to go to college, but you, boy, are stupid and dumb. You're going to be like me. And I ended up being a gardener like my dad. But when I say the age of 12 is when I first started, I wanted to go work at the 5 and 10 cent store in town, downtown First Street. That would be like where, what's the name of that good eating place on First Street? Everybody goes to that place. The Ale House? Yeah, that's it, the
Yeah.
Ale House. That
He
was like
said the
the
ale
5 and
house is
10 cent
good.
store. And the 5 and 10 cent store had a sign, need a box boy. So I went home, shined my shoes, got my pants all ready to go, got in the store, and they said, sorry, the job's been taken. You still got the sign. Sorry, job's been taken. Okay, so I turned around and walked out, and my buddy walked in, Caucasian. He got the job, and I didn't get the job.
You said there's no flies here.
So we brought the fly. So I ended up working the fields. I ended up working, what's that big pumpkin patch here in
Oh,
town?
Jones.
No. Uh,
This is Livermore, California.
this is
Yo,
Livermore.
EXP.
I went and worked in the fields at the age of 12. I started picking apricots in Hollister. I started working short handle hoe, cutting beets and stuff like that here in Livermore. Hageman Ranch, Hagemans. Hagemans are still here. It's kind of funny how they try to pay me as a little boy. I'm a young boy, 12, and I'm working with hobos. Hobo today is called a homeless person, but back in the day they were called hobos. And so they would pay the hobos with wine, and they wanted to pay me with wine. I said, well, I don't drink, and I want money. I didn't want my dad to cut my hair anymore, so I worked the fields, and I was probably making $1.50 an hour, and that was a lot of money at the age of 12, and I just started making my own way. But
Were you speaking English at that
I
time?
spoke English very
Okay,
well.
so by
And
12.
it's really funny because my father tried to teach me. He speaks 3 dialects of the 80 plus dialects that there are. He's from Santa Maria Locosur, so he speaks Ilucano, he speaks English, he speaks Spanish, he writes Spanish and English, he can write it, and 2 other dialects. And he tried to teach me his dialects, and I laughed, and he got angry, and he never taught me again. So the Filipino that I speak, like Baboy Kambing is all mixed, Tagalog, whatever. And then the bad words I learned in the fields, working alongside my Mexican Pinoy buddies. I'm just gonna say it.
Free
Hey,
country.
putang ina, and I go, what? And so they explained what that meant. And I don't use those words like that, but that's how I learned my Filipino language. Magandang katawan. I love your body. Magandan, magantayon, time to eat. Those
Take
are all
notes.
basic things that I learned to be able to survive. And thank God I did, because when I entered the military, it helped me when I went to PI.
Oh, there you
But
go.
my youth, it was difficult. It was difficult in our freshman year at Granada High School. There was like 10 mixed bloods in 1969. Mixed bloods, Puerto
Mhm.
Rican black, Filipino, Mexicans, uh, Pinoy, a couple of Chinese, and that's it. 10 of us of 1,500 kids. And when we played football, we got drugged to the mud by our Caucasian buddies. And in our senior year, they finally said to us, "Man, you guys are all right. You took it. Took what? The harassment you gave us? We took the harassment and we gave it back." And then they finally realized we pee, we bleed, we cry just like everybody else. But because we're mixed color, we're light, we're different color skin, we were judged for that kind of stuff. And it's just sad. But within that, like I say to you today, we have our own class of people, our own Pinoy families, our mestizo family, that classify you because you grew up on Railroad Avenue, you grew up on the east side of town, the west side of town. We're all people. And that's what I love about art. He's bringing us all together as people, not
Thank you.
separate. That's what I love about art. He paid me for that, but I won't say
$1.50 an hour.
that. An hour. Amen.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so then it brings us to like 69,
Well, the
70s,
military.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like, this is, you got recruited. Did you get recruited? Yeah.
I got
I'm sure they went
I
hard in the
volunteered. I
paint
didn't get
to recruit
recruited.
people for the war, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was after all of, the 60s was happening. So you had, free love at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had free love. And also a lot of social justice, like, happening, reckonings, right? Like just a lot of things were shifting at the time.
Yes.
So talk about navigating that.
Well, it's really funny you say that too, Art, because when I joined the military, I volunteered and I took my test at 2222 Clay Street, and that's in Oakland. I passed the Navy test, because like I told you, I didn't care about education. I wanted to work. I had to bring money to the house to be able to help my dad. Uh, in high school, if you left your Pumas or your Adidas or your Converse that fit on the locker, they were missing because I got them. I stole them. But
This guy, the
when I
youth
entered the
liaison, by
military
the
in
way.
1969, I can remember this very vividly. We're in San Diego with the last graduating class, and I wake up. We get there, airplane bus, and then the San Diego base. And they said, "You," pointing at me, "go over there with those guys." Okay. So I went over there with those guys. You do what they tell you. Now you belong to the military. And that's called with the DD 214, your military property. So they sent me with those guys. And in the morning, all these guys that they sent me to was like 30 Filipinos from the Philippines that were going to be the steward mates changing times in 1969. And here's all these Pinoys. And I'm just going to say it, yakking their dialects. How are you to each other? And I'm standing all by myself, all shy, trying to shave, brush my teeth. And the chief, white chief, says, "Hey, how come you're not over there with those guys?" Said, "What do I want to be? I don't understand what they're saying." He goes, "Aren't you Filipino?" I go, "Yeah, I'm Filipino, half." He goes, "But I'm a United States citizen. I'm born here." "Oh, we thought you were part of them." "Well, I am part of them, culture-wise, but I'm a United States citizen, born here." And that's how it happened. I graduated at boot camp, got on board my ship in 1970 at Mare Island, Vallejo, and here we go again. Big old tall boy meets us at the brow, probably 9 o'clock at night. There's 15 new recruit sailors, mixed races, and this guy's from Alabama. All right, boys, welcome to the USS Long Beach. I'm going to say one thing too. I don't want no Africans or Mexicans or Filipinos in my group. So if you get in my group, you're going to have hell. Excuse me. Guess what group I ended up in? His group. That young man from Alabama, young man meaning we worked together on that ship for 3 years. He retires. No. He retires and he says to me, you know, Max, they call me Max. They couldn't say Felicitas. Normally you go by your last name. Hey, Max. Oh, yeah? You ain't so bad. What do you mean I ain't so bad? I didn't realize you pee. Yeah, like same thing. The sadness of that is that I told him, you were raised that way. You're raised not to understand anybody but your own folk. Me, I was raised to understand a lot of people because I grew up in a community, Livermore, multiracial, multi-group now, and I know how to fight that stuff. You're a good friend of mine, I told him. And I said, you'll always be part of who I am. He started crying and we became good friends. So military at that time, I forget what burnt, Watts or something. We had riots going on.
Yeah, it's Watts.
And they wanted me to stay in the military because I was Mexican Filipino, spoke English very well. But I decided after 4 years and 2 tours of Vietnam, my wife and I decided I'm not going to stay in the military, so I didn't stay. But those are crazy times. The 60s, 70s, Watergate, Vietnam was a joke. A joke meaning we paid the price. The what they say, World War II was the greatest bunch of men ever assembled to do. And most of those guys, the average age of World War II vet is between mid-20s to 30s. Our average age in Vietnam was 18 to 19 years old. And if you made it 6 months, you made it. Because after that, you're either dead or you're coming home. But I was in the Navy, so I didn't have to worry about bullets flying over my head. But I paid the price, and I'm paying the price right now. And I'll tell you about that when we get to that point. But
you want to take a break?
It was a crazy time. No, I'm good, bro. If you stop me now, I'm going to lose my train of thought.
Okay, I'm just saying. I mean,
you need a break?
No, I'm
drink
good.
Some
you guys
water.
good?
He's going to drink water.
No, you need to drink water.
Go get me water. No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. No.
Cool. Yeah.
So peanut got caught.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Garlic peanuts.
Ooh,
yeah.
I wish. Where do you find those at?
Oh, I'll have to bring you some. You already know, at the market, Philippine. Or do you ever I forgot what it's called, but it's an Ilocano thing. You just like roast garlic and peanuts together.
Did you do that in your house?
We did it. Well, we did it growing up on the north side.
In your house?
Well, I mean, everybody's house was my house.
Who did them? If it's not done in your house,
no.
You don't know how to do it.
It was auntie.
I didn't know how to do it.
Okay, so we'll have to do that. I'll have to bring you some
roasted
garlic. Yeah, you just do it. It's right there live. It's good. Put the salt.
You're killing
it's all
me,
good.
brother.
Y'all ever do that? So anyway, yeah. So then
that was
70s,
the social time in the 60s and 70s. Yeah.
Man, it's crazy. We didn't even discuss any of the riots. You alluded to the riots. But...
Oh, come on, man. The Black Panthers and all that kind of stuff. My dad says to me, he says, and I forgot to tell you this, but back in the day, in the early 60s, they wanted me to be a brown beret, which is today the norteño, sureño gang stuff. My dad says, I'll kill you first before you join a gang. And then I found out Bahala Na and the Filipino gangs. And my dad says, I'll kill you first before you join a gang. So I never joined a gang.
Speak to the gangs then. Because speak to the very beginnings, because that's the thing, right? Like we see it as it is nowadays, but from that perspective back then, it's different because it
Well,
started from different things.
in the early 50s and 60s, we grew up with a Hispanic community in our town. The LVM, Livermore Valley Mexicans, and Livermore, that's the Norteño gang. Most of those guys are old school Livermore. Okay, well, they call each other Chicanos. We were Chicano, American born in Livermore, in California. They're called Chicanos. We have the LVMers. They'll take in a black guy, a Chinese guy, a Filipino guy, or whatever. That's an LVMer. When I chased the LVMers back in the day when I did gangs, we found that one of the leaders was Fei Fan was his last name, and I'm sorry, Fei Fan, but he got in trouble, and now he's headed to the big house. I'm sad for these guys that got into that, but at the time when I was doing gang suppression in the schools as a truancy officer, 60% were Norteños, and the other 40% was Southerners. And Southerners, we call them paisas. They're or from El Salvador, Mara Salvatrucha. These guys are definitely Spanish speaking. Not much of that was in our area, but then they started moving in because, again, they worked the vineyards, they worked the fields, they worked whatever. But most of the LVMers, their parents were involved with just working different jobs, not the fields, but they're considered Chicano. It's sad because Livermore, the beginnings of this stuff was, like I said, they wanted me to get involved in the 60s. My dad said no. So it goes back into the 60s, but that's the evolving time in the prison system. 1968, the Northerners started inside the prison system, but the MN, the Mexican Mafia, they started in the early part of the 50s, and that started at Dual Vocational Tracy. So all of that history falls into who we are. Livermore is taking it under control, but it's coming back. Those of you in Livermore today, you'll see in some of the railroad areas, the signs are showing themselves again. But because of COVID, that's the reasoning they give. They don't got time to suppress it anymore. Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to start seeing it back in school again. We call generational gangsters are those people that grew up in this stuff. Their parents believed in it. They dressed their kids in the blue or the red. That's going to come back if we don't deal with it right now. But that all came back in the early 50s and 60s in Livermore. Most of the folk that I know that are dealing with that stuff are not in Livermore anymore. They moved to the outskirts, Hayward, Tracy, Modesto, Mountain House. That's where it's at today, Art.
You think it's like, but the beginnings of it, was it like solidarity within cultures?
That's just what is a gang? The first gang, you know what the first gang was, Art? The 12 disciples.
Mm-hmm.
They all followed Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's the first gang. And some of them were fighters. Peter would chop off an ear and Jesus would rebuke him. So that's the first gang. Yeah. Solidarity, and that's a solid word that you talk of. When we care about each other, you're willing to die for each other. That's a gang.
Yeah.
49ers, Raiders, you're going to die for the Raider. You know, all I'm saying to you, Art, is this. What is a gang? Two or more people doing the same game at the same time.
I feel it. I just wanted to relate that too, because we talk about at that time in the 60s and the 70s and all of that, and how, and you mentioned in your history how you were just trying to navigate through this American, through America, right? Yeah, we're trying to navigate through America, that's y'all, true. Right? And so how do I do that? I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
I do it with my boys.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's the key.
Yeah.
If you see, the only guards at Lawrence Livermore Lab at one time were all Pinoy, all Filipinos. Mm-hmm. They didn't hire any white guys to be gardeners. Why? Because we're so good at gardening? No, they knew how to do that job. Mm-hmm. And that's just how it was in that community. Pinoys, when somebody dies in this town that's Filipino, all the Filipinos come out. When somebody African-American dies, they all come out.
Yeah.
Because we stick together, right? Mm-hmm. When the barrio comes, look at all the Pinoys that show up, bro. Mm-hmm. But then you have the outskirts of people, hey, what's this all about? Mm-hmm. And they come out and they taste the food. Ooh, this is pretty good. What is it? Yeah. Well, it's pancit. Yeah. Pancit.
The begonia said hello.
Hey, what begonias out there?
Danielle. She comes from that lineage.
Well, that's my brother. My dad, my half brother, is a Begonia. His dad was Paul Begonia,
Ooh,
and not too many people know that. But my dad, my brother Peter's dad, was Begonia,
there you
Paul
go.
Begonia. Hi.
Well, there it is. And so we talked about you. Oh yeah, see, there you go. Oh, so anyway, I'm like going into the online world, and I'm like, no, 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 no. The interview's right here.
That's okay.
No, but yeah. So then moving along, right? When you had gotten out of the military
Yeah.
and out of your service, how did you find yourself? How did you land?
Well, it's really funny because when I got in the military, and I'll just be very honest again, I got into drugs in the military. Okay.
Mhm.
I used to push dope.
Mhm.
But we won't get too deep into that. It's just that I got out of the dope after so much time. My wife helped me get out of that stuff. When we got out of that stuff, I got married in 1972 when I was in the military. Come home trying to find a job. All I could get was minimal jobs in the beginning. 7 jobs in 1 year, right out of Vietnam. One working on a horse ranch. Crazy times, bro. But when I finally got stability, I took a test. I became a city worker, and then I became a park and rec. That was time of diversity. What do you call that? Prop 13. They were pushing that. You need to hire more ethnic folk to get into
Mm-hmm.
jobs and all this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And so at Ohlone College, where I got my degree in horticulture, African American gentleman's pushing this to all of us in the classroom, and I raised my hand. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't believe what you're trying to push." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "If the guy isn't qualified, I don't care what damn color he is. He's got to be qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And because of what you're doing, you're causing more strife among us, fighting amongst each other, which we're trying to build up, and you're tearing us down." "Well, hey, brother, I'm not doing that to you." I said, "Yeah, you are. If you're not qualified for the job, don't make a position for me because we need to fill a quota." And that was the thing at that time. So when I took the city test, I passed. But then I sit down in my job first day, and the guy says to me, "Hey, you got the job because you're Mexican." And I go, "Really? Is that what you think?" He goes, "Yeah, you got the job because we had to fill a quota. We filled the Mexican quota. Well, you filled 2 other ones." He goes, "What do you mean?" "I'm having Filipino and I beat white. So I know all 3 of them. So you got 3 in 1."
Yeah.
He didn't know what to say. I was a radical, bro.
Yeah.
I could care less of what you think. I did my job and I did it well. And I did everything I did. I tried to do the best that I could. And sometimes that would get me in trouble. My mouth gets me in trouble.
Right. Hey, it's expression, Can't hold it back. That's for sure.
They've tried to hold me back all my life. And I've told myself, no more. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Well, fast forward. So, talk about family life, and also I'm really interested in learning how you got to be the liaison for the city or for the school. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was an interesting piece. I lost my job at Lawrence Livermore Lab. I'm the first gardener to sue the lab. They weren't doing OSHA correct gardening. I paid the price by both my hands getting cut. I had carpal tunnel. So they cut both my hands, and with that, I sued the lab. Now they do everything OSHA correct, right? But they could care less back in the day. We still had most ethnic folk that did the work at the lab gardening were ethnic people. Very few Caucasians did the job. So running forward with that, I lost my job. So I started, I lost my home. I had to file for bankruptcy at one time in my life. I had a house in Tracy. And to say that, Art, I don't talk about this much, but at one time I thought about taking my life because it was so hard. Newly married, 3 kids, making $2,000 a month. We couldn't make it.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, one day I say this story. Now I'm a church boy. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 25 years old, and I'm 71 now. So ever since that time, I got away from the drugs. I got away from the alcohol. Um, and the Lord's been part of my life all my life now. But one time, my son and my wife went out. We were going through this hard time to the store, and my son now, who's 43, asked his mother if he could have a little can of peaches. Of course, they were expensive, 32 cents. We didn't have the money. And so he cried. My wife cried because she couldn't buy it. We get home, and there's 1 gallon container of the same peaches he wanted. Somebody from the church delivered that. So we've been trusting the Lord for a long time to readjust to what's going on today and everything that's going on. It's because the Lord sees us through all of this stuff. It's a time in our lives where, you know, and we're getting close to retired in 2013. They got the job with the schools as a liaison. I had to sit before 20 people because
That was your interview?
it was a new position. Yes, my interview. Most people got handed their position. Hey, you're a new CWA, child welfare attendance person. I had to sit in an interview process between 18 to 20 people, police officers, high ranking people. They spoke to me in Spanish. I had to repeat in Spanish and English just to prove that I knew what I was talking about. Thank goodness I studied at DVI when I worked in there just as a worker, gangs and drugs, and I was able to answer a lot of their questions. So they formulated, I think it was 1996. It's called the School Community Liaison, and that was the name of the position. That was the nice title. My job was gangs, drugs, and alcohol. Truancy officer. I was the guy that went to the doors for the hardest of the hardest that didn't want to go to school and get you to school. I've seen death. I've gone to a house and I found a father dead body. I've seen kids that should not have been brought back to school because they got beat by their dads and their moms because they didn't make it to school. So I've seen a lot of things. I had a girl die in my arms in school as a liaison. In 2001, I tried to do CPR on this young girl. She died, and her bench is outside of Livermore High School's front. There's a bench dedicated to her. Her name was Amber Brook. So I've done a lot of things with that, but 20, 18 to 20 people, school committee liaison, and mine was a hard test. The people under me were CWA specialists, child welfare and attendance people. There is nobody like me because when I retired, they cut the position out. And as a matter of fact, they said some things to me that bothered me. But I try to tell the super and everybody else in this town, if you don't continue doing what I did, you're going to have it all come back again. And it's slowly creeping back right now. But they were mad. A lot of these people were mad. Some administrators. That was a high paying position at that time when I started. It was 55,000 and great benefits. And when I retired, it was pushing between 65 to $67,000 plus all the benefits. And as a matter of fact, during the Prop 13, when the city they started cutting people's positions, they were going to cut mine at the school. The police department picked me up for 2 years because they wanted my expertise in what I was doing in schools. So I've been blessed. I've been covered by the blood, and I thank God that He's been good to me. But this last 2 years has been crazy in my life. I got hit by a gangbanger, Art, about 2012. He got his 4 points that day, his cuatro puntos. He's a LVMer. And I never knew it, but he displaced my hip. And I had a hip replacement about 2 years ago. And part of the symptoms, I've got cancer now. It's a terminal cancer. Um, I don't see too many of us ethnics in there, but we got cancer. Uh, but the thing with that is that supposedly about 2 years ago, I was itching. And part of the symptoms of this cancer that I've got is itching. And I didn't know it. I thought it was the replacement of the metal in my body. But it has something to do with that. So getting to where I'm at today, I have a full-blown stage 4 terminal cancer. 1 in 1,000 people get what I got. And I think art, we're getting close to what I'm done talking, but
Mhm.
what I'm thankful about, and I'm not because he's sitting here, but because art is bringing the community back together again. It's time we as a people, Felicitas and Begonias, uh, all these people that are Pinoy last names, Mestizo last names, we're all people. And
I
we're
got
all
a
people.
I got a Frank begonia.
And I need to understand, you need to all understand that we old timers, meaning 70s, 80s, 90s, all y'all have a story. It's time to support art. It's time to support the organizations that are out here. It's nice to give scholarships, and I'm glad you do that. But it's also time to recognize we've got to raise this generation to understand our culture. You know, I love to see a pork killed and roasted out there. You know, lechon. I love to see that. The goat cooking, but we can't do it. Art can't do it by himself, and we've got to find a venue that'll handle that. But all I'm saying to you is that we keep this history in us in Livermore. It's a rich history, but nobody wants to share it. And if you do share it, it only gets shared at parties in your house. You don't show your kids anymore because they don't have time. All they know everything. Everything's on Facebook or whatever. But I don't even know what Facebook is. But that's because I'm old, and that doesn't matter. So I just want to thank you, Art, for taking the time to interview me. There's a lot of things we could talk about. If you had us, direct questions, we could open that up. But I think the thing that I'd like to just share, bottom line, is we as a people, our people, mestizo, pure Pinoy, pure Chinese, pure Japanese, we need to share the love that's within us and not, this COVID is an excuse to me. And it's real. Don't get me wrong, it's real. But we're so afraid today. You can't be afraid of life. You got to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk. I'm not afraid of dying, folks. I'm sorry. I already went to Vietnam twice. I fought the gangs in this town. They 187 me 3 times in this city. That means they wanted me dead. That's penal code for death. They put my name up 3 times, twice in Livermore and once between Tracy and Livermore in the back roads. Not because I'm so perfect. You can come to my door today and take me out if you want, but I'm already moving in that direction. I'm just buying time now, and I'm thankful for my wife. 49 years married to Mary Felicitas, Thanksgiving Day. And all I ask as I end this is that you continue to pray for me. I know some of you out there that are watching this don't like me. I'm sorry. If I've hurt you, offended you in any way, forgive me. I just did my job. But I tell you what, you raise your kids to be better. You show them the way. Love your husband, love your wife, love your partner the best way you know how. And that's what I love about Art. He loves everybody. Everybody comes in to this town and they need to meet this man, support this man. That's it,
So
Art.
thank you so much for this interview. I think that maybe one more point that I'd like to come across, and
Oh,
we started to talk about it, or you started to talk about it, is just like the youth nowadays.
uh,
And really just imparting wisdom to the youth nowadays, right?
yeah,
Like it's really different time, but
yeah,
at the same time we're still human beings, right? So it's like that doesn't change.
yeah.
And what kind of wisdom would you impart on, you know,
Art,
on the young you maybe even?
we don't take the time anymore to have Sunday meals, break bread together as families. We don't. This Thanksgiving, when you sit down, watch how many people are on their phone. How many are in the kitchen learning how to cook like Papa and Grandma? Who's learning? Who's learning? Who's learning how to cook that turkey? How to make the mashed potatoes? This is the year I'm going to teach my kids to learn that stuff and do that stuff. Because when we pass on, those traditions slowly but surely go away. So, youth today, get off Facebook, get off that phone, and especially during times. And moms and dads out there that got young people, you get off your phones. Start talking to each other. Start caring for each other. How do I mean by caring? You know what? Me and my wife, we still argue. We still get mad. We try to tell each other we love you. How you doing? How you doing, babe? How you going? I love you. Love you. You know, we don't say that enough. We don't hug enough. COVID. Oh, get out of here, COVID. You just don't want to do it. That's all. But my advice to you, young people, formulate all those clubs you want, but do something with that club. Go find those people that need you, meaning the old folks, people like me. Interview somebody. I bet you don't even know what grandma and grandpa did as you grew up. Take the time to talk to them. I asked a lady the other day, what did your dad do in the Navy? I don't know. Well, when he dies, what are you going to know? My kids know my story. You know, they may not believe it, but they know my story. Love one another is really the key, Art. You got to take time. Put those phones away during these holiday seasons and thank each other for really who you are as a family, as a society. And that's how we're going to get over this COVID stuff and this racial bias and all these different things. Diversity begins in your home. And believe me, my brother Art talks about the political climate. What the hell are you going to change in Washington? Nothing. It changes in your house. It starts in your home. That's where it starts. Then you got to find a faith. That's me. You got to find a faith. If you don't have a faith, you ain't got nothing. And I'm not going to tell you what faith. Okay. I just happen to be a faith that believes that there's a greater God and his name is Jesus. And I'm led by the Holy Spirit every day of my life. So if he sees fit to get me out of this chair, out of this cancer, so be it. But he also has prepared a place for me. And I already know that. And I'm thankful for that. I'm just thankful for my 71 years. And I'm thankful for my wife, my kids, Amber, Jacob, Daniel, my grandbabies. Those are beautiful babies. We make pretty babies, us mestizos. I'm sorry, but we do. The mixed bloods. If Art's looking at them up there on the wall.
It's the truth.
But this little white boy up here that's got Filipino Mexican blood, and my three kids up there that got our little African American, Puerto Rican, Pinoy, all mixed. They're all beautiful babies. But we're a beautiful people, and we need to carry on our culture. Amen.
Amen.
Mahalo, pare.
Mahalo. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't think there's any questions out here, so it's all good.
You give you 5 minutes to ask.
They all are saying, thank you. They're saying they're praying for you. Let's scroll. Much respect. They enjoyed it. Lots of love. You see the heart. Francis Begonia was grandfather.
Really, Paul was their grandfather?
Oh, Francis Begonia was Danielle's grandfather.
Oh,
Susie's here. Nancy's here. The Arroyo family is saying hello and thank you. All this stuff.
Yeah.
Good. So lots of love.
Good.
Anyway, we're gonna sign off. Yeah.
What are your last thoughts?
My last thought? No, I just, I love hearing story, like talking story and just hanging out,
Amen.
It's funny here. I'll talk about it. So I came in here with an agenda and I was actually going to send, pre-questions last night and have it all ready. And then we get here and I'm setting up and we just roll in with whatever comes, because that's just how it is. This isn't academic. This may go into some files, into some vaults, but at the end of the day, I just want to know, because that's the wisdom, right? And I think that also speaks to what Clay's talking about with just catching up with folks, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be your mom, it could be your grandpa. It could just be somebody on the street just catching up, that's it. What are you about?
Yeah.
Right. That's how it's been. And it's not like that. And I get it. We live in the Bay Area, so I mean, everybody's ripping and running.
Fast pace.
I don't
brother.
have time for nothing. I'm trying to get money, right? But it's about slowing down and really trying to connect with others, and figuring that out, because that's what makes your community,
Yeah.
are the people in there, right? That's what makes a difference, right? I'm not here because I'm here. There's a reason. Like, it's because of people.
Yep.
I'm here for people, period, right? God didn't save me for nothing. So anyway, yeah, those are my 2 cents. I feel like I think that kind of goes along
Thank
with
you,
what
Art.
Clay was saying.
It's
But
true.
man, I'm thankful, because you know what? This was supposed to happen like 5 years ago. I see him over at grocery outlet like all the time, and then I'm like, hey, oh,
Who are you?
I saw him over at grocery outlet all the time. I'm like, hey, can I call you? Can we have an interview?
Yeah, yeah.
He looked at me crazy. He was like,
Yeah,
no.
right.
And then
That's what I felt. Yeah, right. It ain't gonna happen.
3 years later, and then Barrio happens, and then he's like, okay, you're doing something. Still didn't do anything about it though.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, into Barrio, which is 6 years, he's like, all right, maybe. And then this year, he's like, okay, we can do an interview. Okay, do an interview at the man's house.
Praise the Lord.
Anyway, thank you all.
God bless.
God bless. Yeah, for sure. And this will be on YouTube also, so it's captured. I hope so. All right. Have a good day.
That's